everyone, welcome back to this channel of crafting, crochet and knitting. My name is Nikki. How are you guys doing? As always, let me know in the comments down below. So, I have actually been really good. I haven't bought any more yarn and I have been making projects from my stash. And I've actually, in the process of trying to record this video for you guys, realised how much I've been using of my yarn, and I've got too many projects to talk about in one video, which is great because that means I've got plenty to show you guys in future videos too. But it does mean that I'm only going to be talking about a couple of things today. Yeah, so one is a stash busting project and the other is a mending project. So the backstory of the stash busting is that a couple of weeks ago I put out a video showing you my yarn stash, and I realised how much of my stash was yarn I picked up for a particular project, and I wanted to make my way through it. And I sort of had told myself I wouldn't buy any more yarn until I'd made a significant dent in my stash. And 1 week later I came home with some lovely purple chunky yarn from Aldi. So basically I was in the shop, I saw this purple yarn, and it's such a lovely shade of purple, beautiful colour, really loved it, went to pick it up. Then I was really good and I told myself, no, you're not going to make anything with it, put it back. And just as I was putting it back, I then had an idea pop into my head and it swiftly came back into my basket, and I ended up with 2 balls of this yarn. So it was purple chunky yarn, and I thought cushions would be perfect because at home I had 3 cushions. 2 were a burgundy wine colour, I'll show you them in a bit, and one was my Karen and Pantone cushion in these purples and pinks and blues. This was a very expensive cushion to make. I used 3 skeins of yarn because of this tapestry crochet style, but I absolutely love it. It just doesn't really go with the sort of the burgundies and the wine colours that I have, which are a very deep autumnal kind of colour, and these are a lot more light, not maybe a little bit summery, sort of springy. This sort of brings to mind new growth, new plants, new flowers. The purple ridge is very bright as well, very saturated bright colour, so it didn't go with my other cushions. And I thought, when I saw this purple, I thought if I make cushions out of this purple, it will match and I will have a set to go with the Karen Pantone cushion. However, when I got it home, I realised 2 things were wrong with this idea. The first is that this purple was nothing like any of these tones. This purple is a very rich and deep colour again. It doesn't match this bright purple. It kind of matches these pinks okay, but it doesn't match these bluer denim shades at all either. So I thought, well, great, that's not going to work. I wondered about maybe trying to find a way to integrate these pinks into the pattern with the purple. And that's when I realised the second thing wrong with this idea, which is that this purple was a lot thicker than the Karen and Pantone yarn. So even though they're both chunky and super chunky classes are very varied in their size, this is not at all the most chunky. It's actually maybe more like an Aran, to be honest with you. It's really not very chunky at all. I'd forgotten this when I picked up this chunky from Aldi. So yeah, they don't match. There's no way they're going to match. Karen and Pantone is going to need to wait before I can make it some new friends. But thankfully I did hold up the purple to my burgundy and my wine shaded cushions, and they share that nice deep colour. So they do actually go quite well together, which is good. I've got one other cushion which is a store-bought cushion, but again it doesn't really go with that purple very well. So I have not been matching my colours with any great success. But it still, like I say, it has that nice tone to it. It does go with the others. And I thought, okay, well, not all is lost. Let's still make it into a cushion. So I made 4 attempts at this cushion. The first was actually using the pattern on the back of the ball band. So Aldi yarns have a pattern on the reverse of the ball band for all their yarns. I don't typically use that because I tend to buy the yarn for my own projects, for things like origami or crochet toys, but I didn't know what to do with this. Once I realised it wasn't going to work as part of a different colour combination, I knew it was going to need some sort of texture, but I didn't want to copy the texture which was on these two cushions, which is a basket weave stitch. So you have blocks of purl and blocks of knit. This works very well when you have lots of stitches, so DK weight worked quite nicely. There's about 70 stitches in here to get this length, but there's only about 25 or 26 stitches in here to get the same length, or very similar length, in this cushion. So basket weave wasn't going to work because there's no way I could set up enough of a square, and I didn't want it to be a basket weave. I didn't want to do the same thing, I wanted something different. So I used the pattern on the back of the ball band. It was a cable based pattern and it did not work. I did not like it. When you cable, you're pulling stitches across other stitches, and that can leave this sort of gap, which tends to close up as you do the rest of the project, by which I mean you don't tend to see it, but the hole is still there. So if you poked your finger through at an angle, you would put your finger through that hole. And I didn't want that in a cushion because, like, you know, cushions get leant on and sat on all the time. I didn't want something like that to be an issue, for someone's button to get caught in it, for example. So I ripped it out and I thought, okay, maybe if I just make the cable smaller. So the pattern actually called for 3 stitches to be pulled across 3 more stitches, so 6 in total. And I thought, okay, what if I tried 2 over 2, so 4 in total? That also didn't work because it's such a chunky yarn. The hole was still quite big, and single cables didn't work because the single stitches were losing a lot of their definition. They were kind of getting washed out by the rest of the pattern. I didn't like it. So then I thought, what on earth am I going to do? I'd really enjoyed working the moss stitch on my jumper recently. See a few videos ago for that. So I thought, what if I do a moss stitch? But a moss stitch is, you have alternating knit and purl, knit and purl, knit and purl, and you sort of do 2 knits on top of each other, 2 purls on top of each other, 2 knits on top of each other. So it's 2 by 1 in terms of the stitch size. And because these single stitches were getting washed out in the previous patterns, I thought that doing a moss stitch, I'd wash the pattern out and I wouldn't get the texture I wanted. So I decided, what if I tried to double up the moss stitch? So I would do 2 by 4 instead of 1 by 2. And I started doing that and it looked absolutely hideous because I've only got 25 or 26 stitches to play with. You didn't get that pop of the pattern. It looked like it was trying to be a basket weave and it was failing at a basket weave. I hated it, basically. It looked awful. So I ripped it back. So this was my 3rd attempt that I was ripping back, and I was beginning to get a little bit sick now of repeating myself and not having much to do with this cushion. And finally decided, just mock up the moss stitch, see how it looks. And of course it looks amazing. So I wasted all that time, and basically kind of what's happened is, in the previous patterns those individual stitches were getting washed out by the size of the cable, but in the moss stitch itself the pattern's getting actually pushed forward. So the sort of the knit stitches are falling back and then the purl stitches are popping forward. And so even though I'm holding the cushion back here, you can see all that texture. And past Nikki was very wrong to not just go for the moss stitch in the first place. And past Nikki paid for it because she wasted a day of her life. So yeah, I think it really looks good. I've only made 1 so far. I'm going to make 2. It actually didn't use too much yarn either. So I've got the 2 panels, and then I've done a cable kind of corded crochet border. The 2 panels are knitted, and that used maybe like 75% of the ball. I've still got some left, not enough to do another cushion, but maybe enough to do a panel. At the very least it would be enough to do the corded border on a second cushion. So I think overall I'm probably going to have half a ball left after I've made both cushions, which is good, but also I've got no idea what I'm going to do with half a ball of chunky yarn. But yeah, once that's worked up, I'm going to have a lot more space on my shelf because of how much space the chunky yarn takes up. So that's excellent. And then I have the mending project to tell you guys about. So I have actually already returned the jumper to its owner, so I can't show you it in real time, but I have got lots of photos I'm going to put on the screen now. Of the mending that I've been working on. So yeah, this was a jumper that was bought by a family member abroad, and it posed an interesting challenge for a couple of reasons. One is that the yarn that it was made out of is unique. There's no way that I am going to be able to ever find and purchase a yarn that was made out of this particular fabric combination. It's just not going to happen. This poses a number of problems because when you mend a garment, it's best to try and match the fabric for fabric, because when you wash it, if you have different materials, they're going to respond to water differently. They might, one might stretch while the other shrinks, and that's going to put tension on the garment. Unfortunately, I didn't have an option. I had to fix this with a different material because I just couldn't match to the original garment. So a couple of things I had to mend on this jumper. One was a very small hole at a seam. Very simple to fix. You just pull the fabric back together and re-seam it. So that wasn't too difficult, apart from the fact that I didn't have a thin enough yarn to match the jumper either. So I did have to find some DK, and the DK I had was 4-ply. I ripped it in half so it was 2-ply, and that was simple enough to mend. The patches were a bit more difficult. So on both elbows, my family member had managed to make about a 1-inch hole in each elbow. And the problem with that is that if you try and pull the fabric back together and just sew it, you're going to be taking 1 inch of length out of the circumference of the arm, and it's going to be too tight and it's not going to work at all. So you get to the point where you have to patch it. The other thing that you have that's a problem with a hole like that is that you've also got the sort of about 1 centimetre's worth of material around the hole is weakened by the use. So when you start getting a hole in a garment, the best thing to do is to fix it when it's small, because you can just pull the fabric together and sew it and you can close the gap. But when you've actually got a hole forming, the fabric immediately around the hole is a lot looser, a lot weaker, and it's not as strong, so you can't actually sew those 2 bits of fabric together because they'll just pull apart again. And if you try and close it up using stronger fabric, again, you're actually reducing it by more than 1 inch circumference of the arm. So you need a patch. And this is why I would have needed a material very similar to the original fabric, because that patch is going to react differently to water when it's washed than the original fabric. And the last thing you want to do is to stretch and pull in one direction or the other that fabric around the hole. So that's not ideal. I did warn the owner, you know, it might not last very much longer because the patches did have to be made out of a different material. But I've done my best. And what I did was at least try to work on the aesthetic. So the jumper has this nice diamond pattern to it. I decided that that means I should make the patches in a diamond shape. So I knitted those up in a diamond shape and tried to match the size to the diamonds on the shirt as well, so it would fit in really nicely. It was big enough to cover the hole, which was also a bonus, and also to cover up that sort of lesser fabric either side of the hole. I think I might have shown a picture, I can't remember if I took a picture or not, of the first step in patching, which is to sew around the stronger material around the hole, just to try and stop the edge from fraying any further into the fabric. So hopefully I did show you that picture. And then once you've sewn a sort of like a perimeter around the hole, you can then sew the patch over the top of the hole, and that should keep it all looking nice and being secure. My patches were very big and chunky, and not at all ideal, but I'm still happy that I've been able to save this jumper from being thrown away, you know, a few years earlier than it could survive still. And actually what I can do as well is, when the jumper does become just too unjumper like. I can either offer to try and transform it into a vest top, a vest pullover, or I could offer to rip the yarn out and weave it back into a hat of some description, or gloves, to offer up a new garment in place of the old one using the same material, because it is a very lovely soft material. So those will be the options I can give them in a few years' time when the patches begin to stop working. So hopefully it will last that long. We'll see. Hopefully. I did my best. I do think that we should be trying to mend things more and more. It is difficult because some things, a lot of things, it costs less to go and get a new one, but that just means that we're in the current situation that we're in, where we've got so much waste in landfill, we've got stuff that's not breaking down, we're needing more and more to recycle to catch up with ourselves for the decades worth of living like we can just get a new thing and throwing away the old one. So I think it's worth the effort. I've got a lot of clothes that I can't fit into anymore that can either go to charity, or if they're not actually very stylish anymore and they're not going to sell it in a charity shop, then I can rip the fabric apart and make it into some other garment that I can wear. So for example, I can take the material in a dress and turn it into a t-shirt. So that's the plan. I'm going to try and do more of that. So hopefully I'll be able to show you more of that on my channel as well in the coming weeks and months. And for now, just before I end this video, I know it's getting a little bit long, but I have an announcement to make, because a couple of videos ago I asked you guys what I should make next, and this was toys. I gave you a few options: a bunny, a zebra, or a hippo, and asked you guys to vote which one you think I should make next, and the results are in. So initially it did look like the zebra was going to pull ahead, but I can now reveal that actually it was the bunny that won the vote. So the bunny is going to be next. I really enjoyed letting you guys choose. I was so hooked watching the comments, waiting for anyone's new vote, seeing how it would go. It does seem like the poor little hippo didn't get any love. So, maybe next time he will. I'm definitely going to do this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the bunny. I'm going to work on some other things for some videos and show you in the future. And I'm going to, as I make progress on the bunny, release a new vote. And I'll probably put the zebra and the hippo back in there. So the zebra has got another chance to go next. But I'm going to have like a third mystery object in there. It might be a third toy, or it might be something completely different. So yeah, I want to see whether the zebra gets that second chance, or whether the third object creeps in, or maybe we get some love for the hippo in our next vote. I don't know, but it's so exciting. I love letting you guys choose, and hopefully you'll be excited to choose on that project in future too. So I am going to go and start working on the bunny and start working on some other projects, and I can't wait to get back to you in another video. I've got so much progress to show you. I can't wait, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.